people it's here.
I want to welcome everybody to this event, the book launch of Return Ticket for Sydney to Bistrița, who's been a long way in the organizing and has been on and off so many times. And I want to thank Oriana, I'll present her shortly, who on behalf of the State Library has been very patient with us. Organizing the event, it's on, it's off, it's on, it's off, and finally it is on. So Oriana represents the multicultural section of the State Library, and I'm inviting her to say a few words as opening remarks.
Welcome everyone to the State Library. Good to see you. Good to see you, everybody. It's so wonderful that finally we can come together. So our desire is that hopefully we will see you this year and the following year and for many years to come. For as long as you are creating poetry and work of literacy, literary work, then we'll be happy to have you here. This is your home. So on behalf of the State Library, I would like to acknowledge the Gadigal people, the traditional custodian of the land on which the library stands. We pay our respect to Aboriginal elders, both past and present, and extend our respect to other First Nation visitors. We celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal culture and languages across New South Wales. So once again, I hope that you have a wonderful event, and I'll stay here and listen to all the presentation and all the interesting people that I think coming online. Okay.
Thank you very much, Oriana. And as I said, you've been a wonderful host over the years. And again, this time around with all the interruptions and disruptions of COVID. And in fact, this volume that we are going to present today is a child of the pandemic, if you like. This pandemic has caused so many problems and headaches for not just for us in Australia, but all over the world. One of the few positive things have been people have become a lot more creative and cooperating. By the way, I'm just going to ask the people in Bistrița, Zorin, Dr. Dorel, Cosma, can you hear me?
Yes, it's okay.
Loud and clear.
Excellent, very good, very good. I'm just going to say a few introductory words and then I will get the show going, as they say, show rolling on. So first of all, just how did this start? Sorry. A lot of you know the story, so I'm just going to keep it to the bullet points. Essentially, at some stage, I think it would have been early 2000 or mid 2020, while COVID was already raging. I did mention to Zorin and to Dr. Cosma, good friends of mine with whom we did many interesting projects over the years, that, you know, bragging. What's a poet if he's not bragging a bit and self-promoting? So I mentioned to Dr. Cosma and to Zorin that I'm a member of this most august group of poets from Sydney, led by none other than Judith Beveridge, who's one of the top Australian poets, recipient of the, how can I embarrass, is Judith here? I know she's easily embarrassed, of many prizes, etc. And they said, wow, that's amazing. You know, could we do a book together? And just like that, they did. And it was their initiative of the good people of the Palace of Culture in Bistrița, a city of about what, 100,000, 200,000, 50,000. How many people in Bistrița, Zorin?
About 80,000.
About 80,000. There we go. Somewhere between 100 and. But a city which punches way above its weight in terms of culture and in terms of cultural events, not in a small measure due to the Palace of Culture and this group that we've been interacting with over the years in relation to this volume. So this is how it started. It was, however, it was COVID. And if you remember last year and maybe the year before, parcels and books and things could just, Australia, so we couldn't get the books. So we asked for permission and they kindly gave it to us the Australian Romanian Academy for Culture asked for permission to republish the book, and this is the one that we've been sharing. Just a few words about the Academy, and with this, I will pass on to the next speaker. Now, Judith, I have you down to say a few words. Is that you're okay with that? Okay, cool, great. Because I did ring you to ask you for your permission, but couldn't get you. So I'm making a lot of assumptions here. So the Australian Romanian Academy, perhaps through this event, more than others, is fulfilling its aim, and that is bringing Australians and Romanians dabbling in culture in one way or another together. It's not the first event of its kind, but it's certainly probably the most significant, if I may say that. It has been the brainchild of my friend George Roca, here present, writer, editor, who represents literature, good literature, poetry as well, articles and prose in many magazines online and in print around the world, from Belgium to Burkina Faso, from Australia to Zanzibar, and I'm almost not kidding. I think there's be at least 20 or 30 countries. So in 2014, he started with this idea, and he said, why don't you do it? Because you are younger. I was younger in 2014, but yeah. So without further ado, I'm going to pass on to invite Judith to the mic, so that people in Bistrița can hear us, and they also have the program, as you do. We'll have to speak from here. So while we interpret the poems, and each one of us will get a turn, I would like you to kind of be on the ball, if you like, and as applause or boos happen from people reciting a poem, for you to make your way up, so that we don't have too many dead moments, if you like. Same for the people in Bistrița, and I did invite you to also keep to the alphabetical order of the names once your turn comes in the middle of the program. Now, I'm going to pass on with Judith. After that, a few words from Zorin and Dr. Cosma, and then we'll leave it to Daniel Reno for the rest of the program. Please, Judith.
Good afternoon, everyone, and I think good morning to those in Romania. Thank you very much, Daniel. It is a great pleasure to be at this event celebrating the Sydney Bistrița anthology this afternoon, and I'd like to thank all the editors, and especially to Daniel for putting it all together, and for connecting our two cities and our two countries through poetry. We all enrich through this cultural and poetic exchange. And I know the poets in our contingent feel extremely fortunate to have this opportunity, a chance to read with the Romanian poets. And over the past couple of years, we've learned a great deal from Daniel about Romanian poetry, its past, its history, and its current form. So thank you, Daniel, for that really tremendous opportunity. And I think, you know, given the state of the world at present, the pandemic, the war in Ukraine, which I'm sure is being felt extremely keenly in Romania at the moment, climate crisis and all the other pressing issues, it's events such as this one that remind us we're all connected through our humanity, and that poetry lifts us deeper into an awareness of ourselves and others. And in this way, poetry will always be a radical and potent force for good. And I think often when a poem moves us, it's that some sort of energy has leapt from the words on the page, some mysterious transference has occurred. And as the poet Jane Hirschfield says, a good poem is a through passage. A good poem leaves poet and reader changed. The person who holds the page is different than he or she was before. It's lovely to see people in person today. Our group's been meeting for some years now, but obviously the last couple of years it's been through Zoom. And because of this, we've actually been able to include some poets from outside of Sydney, and I think this has been a very positive thing, and I hope this can be extended further. But today we are celebrating our connection with poets from Bistrița. And again, thank you very much, Daniel, and all the editors for this dynamic exchange between our two cities and our two countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judith. I will pass on in 20 seconds to Zorin and to Dr. Cosma for their words. But I want to say a few words about Judith because I'm sorry about that, Judith. But it's one thing to be a good poet and to be published and so on. And there are several excellent poets in the room here from whom I learned a lot and I keep learning. Judith goes, I guess, several steps beyond that in terms of her generosity and her willingness to share and to teach us. We are all, I mean, in the group there, I can see some poets who've received prizes, are included in Australian anthologies, etc. And they still come to the group to learn. And I guess this learning is what keeps our energy and our group going. And thank you again, Judith, for that. I am going to pass on the mic to Zorin and to Dr. Cosma from Bistrița.
Thank you a lot, Daniel. Good morning, good afternoon, or hello should be more appropriate due to global communications. My late father used to say, son, if you have to make a speech, make it short. My father was a wise man. All I want to say is that I found the speech of Judith Beveridge very touching, and I'm indebted to her for that speech. And I agree that poetry is a radical weapon, and we have to be careful about the way we are going to use it. As we do not have very much time, I will pass on to my poem, which I'm going to read in Romanian, and I think the English version of it is available in Sydney. Fake poem, that's easy to translate. În satul nostru, poeții pleacă doar după miezul nopții. Fără o rază de lună, citim din carnetul de note a ajutorului șefului de post. Poezia se pretează. Încrederea noastră e în suferință, cetățenii nu trebuie să creadă mare lucru despre poezie. Avem și noi tradiții și nu admitem să ni se dea lecții. Poezia nu e a lor și nu știm ce mai fac poeții după miezul nopții. Poemul se cere distribuit doar prin persoane autorizate. Altfel, vom ajunge să citim poeme scrise cu zeamă de ceapă, poeții vor aștepta să se aprindă lumânările, să înceapă petrecerea, iar textele lor vor apărea din senin. Thank you very much. Dorel?
Thank you. Good afternoon and good morning from here from Romania, because here it's now 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm very happy to be here together with you. It's one very important event. It's on culture bridge from Bistrița to Sydney. And it's very important this moment because it's one example for all the world. Bistrița is one little town in Romania. And this culture bridge for today, it's one example for all the people for working for peace and for friendship in all the world. And because time is money, I think it's better If you want, listen to my poems from this book. Congratulations again, Daniel, Ionita, for your working for this very nice moment, for this event, and Normal for these very nice books. It's a pleasure for us, and it's honor for us to be together. My poems, it's to my mother. Suntem toamna ce vine și trece, valuri ce spală faleze de nisip, timpul ce schimbă anii și viața, râuri ce curg mereu la vale, amintind când mama striga adunarea și aveam pantalonii cu dungă aranjați, cămașa călcată la fir și masa gătită mereu cu migală. Privitul îndelung prin sticla ferestre centrale, când pașii m-au dus la școli mai înalte, acasă eram mereu așteptat, chiar și cu plete cărunte, cu ani mulți adunați, rămân și astăzi odorul din sufletul mamei. Și acum, când cu glasul timid întinde o mână și îți spune că o doare, că-i greu să nu ai soluții în lumea modernă de zeu, ai vrea ca fiul iubitor să iei suferința, să știi că ești alături mereu, așa cum și ea ți-a însuflat credința în bine, în dragoste și să nu faci rău. E greu când nu poți, când nimic nu ajută, când obligat accepti o lacrimă în colțul de suflet, durere ce simt cu tic-tac sufocat și aș vrea să o revăd topind vitralul înghețat și urcându-mă iar în trenul vieții. Dar timpul privește tăcut, umbra apasă mai tare, încerci o scurtă alinare, mai strângi o mână obosită la piept, ce bine-i că poți spune prezent și încă mai ești copilul mamei. Thank you very much. Continuăm noi cu...
Thank you, Dr. Cosma, and thank you, Zorin. You can see those poems. Fake poem. You know, Donald Trump came up with fake news. Zorin went one better with a fake poem. And To My Mother by Dorel Cosma, also in the volume. Now, I'm briefly going to introduce Daniel Reno, and you may ask what he's doing here, apart from being extremely good looking, but he's... Yeah. But being my brother-in-law, my sister must have seen something in him. I have no idea why, what. But Daniel has traveled, is not just, you know, out of a whim that he is here. No one is going to talk about translations today apart from Daniel. So, because he's participated in this one. This is a weapon of self-defense. It's 2.2 kilos, Romanian poetry from its origin to the present, and Daniel Reno together with Adriana Paul, who is also here. And Eva Foster and myself have put this volume together. So he knows a thing or two about translation, and he's going to talk to you about it.
With a book like that, we can genuinely say that translation is a weighty issue. Bad puns being my forte. But I've grown up bilingual, and so the transition from one language to another is something I've always had foregrounded. My father particularly loved language and loved literature, and was always highlighting the kinds of accidents and sweet spots that occurred when one shifted from English to French or French to English. And so when Daniel asked me to be involved with the translation projects that we've done now for what, nearly 10 years, yeah, it was a welcome thing. It felt great. But of course, translation's a tricky thing. I'm currently teaching a class. I'm a history professor. I'm currently teaching a class on the intersection of history, literature, and film. And it struck me that there are real similarities between converting a novel into a movie as there are in converting a poem from one language to another. Whenever you switch medium, you're confronted with the same issues. At what level am I translating? What is it I'm trying to convey? Obviously, the most important thing is the spirit of the poem. But what conveys the spirit of the poem? Is it the denotations of the word? What about all those rich connotations that make poetry ring, that give it that resonance? What about form? And these are the issues we wrestled with in the translation projects that we did. And I think what made them rich projects, a bit like having poetry workshops, is how much better the poems were for us sitting down together with a draft in front of us and then workshopping what we would do with the final product. And of course, a translator's work is never done. There's no way I can flip through that weighty tome without going, I wish we'd chosen that word that's just occurred to me. And occasionally Daniel and I have debated these things, and generally whenever Daniel's had a launch of some kind, I've come along and I've sung some of the poems that have been set to music by great Romanian musicians, but I've sung them in English. And here's been an interesting thing. I was involved in the book. Boy, they read well, but they didn't sing well. And so I've gone back to Daniel and gone, let's work on this so that it's singable. And the one I've chosen to start with today is precisely one of those poems where the original translation went very much with sort of the mood, but it didn't capture the repetitions, the literal repetitions that made it more singable. And I remember translating a French song, and that was easy because French and English have got quite a few words in common, and this song had lots of words that just dropped straight in. Because in French, those words were ordinary words, but in English, our ordinary words tend to be Anglo-Saxon single syllable words. And here in English, the song sounded much more formal. In French, it was actually quite colloquial. And there's one of the challenges that we face as poets. So this is Mill's Ballad by Cesare Ionescu. And I want you to hum along when we get to the end of each verse. Mill, join me at the window and let's take in the sight. The street is full of women with hips of great delight. The street is full of women with hips of great delight. Ah, la da 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 da, da 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 da, da da da. And again, da 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 da, da 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 da, da da. Thanks. Come on, Mill, do not linger. Let's take in the sight. The street is full of women with breasts of sweet delight. The street is full of women with breasts of sweet delight. Oh, da 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 da, da 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 da, da da da, da 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 da, da 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 da, da da. You have room by the window. Now let's take in the sight. The street is full of women with hair of long delight. The street is full of women with hair of long delight. Oh yeah, la da 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 da, la da da da, la da da, la da 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 da, la da da da. Let's go down to the street now and pray there for a while. Oh Lord, let us encounter the girl with lovely smile. Oh Lord, let us encounter the girl with lovely smile. Ah, and so evening by evening, some lucky lad with style would stumble upon death, see her lovely smile, would stumble upon death, and see her lovely smile. Oh, la da 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 da, la da da da, la da da da, la da 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 da, la da 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 da, la da da. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. There'll be a couple more, hopefully more cheerful. So we are going to start with the poetry recitals, and I believe that I gave program to each one of you. No, I'll bring some around, but let us start with Mona. Mona, is Mona around? Yes. Please make your way here and do recite your poem. Now, I was hoping to be able to juggle the Romanian version of the poem on the screen, but I believe it is too difficult. People in Bistrița have been very, very good at doing this for many, many years. This is our first time of trying to mix all of this technology together, so it doesn't work. However, I believe you have the books, and so do the people in Bistrița, so you can follow Mona. She is, I think, the first poet in the volume with her choice of poem. And next is going to be Catalin after that.
Hi everyone. It's nice to see everyone. Thank you so much, Daniel, for this, and I'm really honored to be here. I'm reading Magazine. It's one of my oldest poems. It was published through Mascara Literary Review over 10 years ago. Do not say a prayer, shed a tear, nor place a wreath on my grave, but bury me instead under a mangosteen tree. Once I'm stiff like lead. Once I'm dead, drip mangosteen milk and wring the sweet white arrows till its juices soak my funeral shroud. And when I die, embalm my head and tuck my teeth in black purple rind. Let the mangosteen roots coffin my bones, skin, and spine. When night comes, let me rustle the leaves with my ghostly arms, and let me scare the thieving monkey that climbs on its fruit-bearing branch. Once I'm freshly dead and buried under the fallen fruits, let the soil and grass pickle my heart and liver in mangosteen's heavenly pus. Thank you.
Șirata lună. Luna se strecoară prin cartier bârfind, prin spatele caselor. Te uiți la ea și e jumătate apărută, iar te uiți la ea și ea e sus. Șireată lună, care știe ce e în capul fiecăruia, mai ales cât a iubit sau cât nu a iubit. Fiecare o vede în altă culoare, plină ca o femeie gravidă unsă cu lei, se urcă sus pe cer arătând semne de urticarie pe burta ei astrală. Șireată lună, se face că stă locului, dar se mișcă rând cu rând ca un do major care se crede la. Șireată lună, face mii de fețe să te îmbete, de bucurie sau de tristețe. În timp ce cerul se strecoară pe sub ea ca o față de masă, trăgând în jos, făcând-o să urce tot mai sus. Șireată lună, cu cât se vede mai mare, cu atât e mai mică, iar când urcă pe aripi de văzduh argint și se face mică, atunci devine mare pentru tine.
My poem is on page 43. It's called the Saffron Picker, and it has an epigram which says that to produce 1 kilogram of saffron, it is necessary to pick 150,000 crocuses. The Saffron Picker. Soon she'll crouch again above each crocus, Feel how the scales set by fate, by misfortune, are an awesome tonnage, a weight opposing time. Soon the sun will transpose its shadows onto the faces of her children. She knows equations, how many stigmas balance each day with the next, how many days divvy up the one meal, how many rounds of a lustrous table the sun must go before enough yellow makes a spoonful heavy. She spreads a cloth, calls to the competing zeros of her children's mouths. An apronful becomes her standard in those purple fields of unfair equivalence. Always that weight in her apron, the indivisible hunger that never has the levity of flowers. Thank you.
Hello, I mean, this poem was inspired by Samuel Beckett, but it was also inspired by the great Romanian playwright Eugene Ionesco, who I was reading at the time the poem is set. Endgame. You to play. Beckett's face is staring from a tattered volume of his games. His mouth a twisted smile, like your body lounging on a torn velvet couch, swathed in blackness, your slender fingers expressive, opening to invite me in, then closing in a fist as the cat sprints in circles and yards. Portraits of women and me, wild like the cat with faraway eyes, swirl with slashes of red and blue. Everything is distorted here, like a precocious Picasso nightmare, shifting and searching for a shape. The room is a cranium. We train a telescope through the window on the zero and grey outside. We amputate slices. We float down a river jostling with Rambo's ecstatic amoeba feeding on snot and dark blue wine. Sirens and traffic and weeping from neighboring rooms seeps in. Why do you stay with me? Why do you keep me? All the mess in my head, the cacophony of voices tearing me in pieces starts to merge in my gestures. We drain the cast bladder into purple blotched cups. We stroke the cat, feeling her scars. We're speaking in a tangled rhythm. Art starts here.
Hi, everyone. The good news, I'm not reading the poem from Ukraine and surrounds. I'm reading the poem from Australia. Down under, Australia, private pools dot the suburbs, unwanted goods grace the sidewalks, spongy material cushions playgrounds, lest the children take a tumble. Police horses wear the white and blue, and little dunny sacks too. The birthday of the British Queen heralds a national holiday. Prime ministers blow in and out like bloated flies. Planes plume the sky with adverts for Cocoa Pops and cruise liners. Topless women sunbathe at the beach, unperturbed, undisturbed, while the tide lands reviled refugees and the lonely seek love online.
Hi, everyone. It's very lovely to be here with all of you today and to be a part of this beautiful conversation between Sydney poets and Bistrița poets. I'm going to read a poem called Station, which was written on Gadigal land. Station. After I've spent the night being someone else and going home, wriggling out of that alien face like an old skin, I like to walk all the way to the end of the platform. You know how it tapers to that thin wharf of concrete with the one fluorescent light on its high pole and the sign that says staff only beyond this point. From here, you can just make out the glitter of the next station. At this time, no one will walk the distance through the dark to get here. The platform's lights are sparse, dull beads on the night's chain. Across the tracks, the fence hangs slackly, a gaping jaw. Stillness clings to everything like frost. A woman's laugh, the clink of glasses, the city's noises are padded here. A siren wails like a half-asleep child. Then a whip of wire, a spring-loaded lash. The train pulls up, groaning in its metal. Thank you.
Instructions. I may be home, or maybe not, when you arrive. The soup is in the empty fridge, just heat it up. A ghost of lettuce and a specter of a buttercup. There should be something, maybe nothing, to contrive. You can't do much about that cough if it persists. Watch some TV, there's nothing on, unless there is. Or read the book with missing pages, hers and his, and settle in the guest room if it still exists.
My poem is called Black on White. I began this poem thinking of the world of white privilege and power, and ended it to give thanks to Indigenous culture and the contribution gratitude can make to our lives after reading Sand Talk. Sorry, you've had to wait for me. Have you waited long enough? I have waited too long. Things are never over. The trials of our bondage are our sand talk here, domination ties. We're derailed, we're just colonial wearing. Listen now to our handprints on the rocks assailing. Silence, please, and we are staying. Gleaning in every installment of our ties to time and our country, wearing our souls on our arms, doubling, longing to be set free of the caprices of white or black and our own privileged coattails and the laissez-faire of our own race, the fantails of the black cockatoo. Perhaps extinction in the tribes and tragedies of external bushfires. Stuffed shirts, extolling our enabled economies and beliefs of enlightenment, irradiance, can now be intellectually disregarded by words of sand talk. We are devoured in the imperfections of our modern world and the fear of the other. The white face is like an anxiety in the blackness with mother first languages or second languages. We creep through our vineyard of blackened soot and fire, Eden trampled by the forearm we have created. Do you take my hand to talk and remember and trivialize? Exploitation, surrender? Dance now to the worlds of Mother Earth to make friends, neighbors, and habitat as we mellow in the words of life. We have sailed to this different shore to release the white prowess from its cupboard and diminished it in our sprees. We cannot go back to terra nullius and do shake your hands and don't look into your eyes now, but treat us with your mind space also custodians of country and land, writing out of a timeless land and its deep imaginings, a country dark in heart, messages the eternal, where my own place is poetry and being a song. It is time to give thanks to the custodians for this grace.
This poem is Grace. Perhaps you move unthinkingly like a dancer. And instead of moving for me, you forget, go to a beat that is only yours. As life is not fiction, it reaches no crisis or apogee. I glimpse a sliver of light in my eye corner, and we are in our skins again. Your teeth, ears, and beard, the line defining your lips, panting, our pillows and legs akimbo, and as usual, we resume in a new tone. And each time is stitched to each other time by, say, your hand at the back of my head, an infinitely tender holding, supporting the neck like bathing. These will be the moments which I know my mother mourns my father for still. The unspoken, a gesture unmanufactured. Seeing these moments makes one rindless. They are the twist which, cherry red and glowing, embroiders me to you in the dark.
Maia Kodrin, the next poet on the list, there she is. Thank you, Maia, for coming, has asked me to recite this poem for her. You are going to do it?
Rămână în grija ta. Timpul în care nu mi-ai mângâiat încă trupul, vreau să alung iarna ce se află bolnavă în mine, închid ochii și te chem mai devreme. Cui nu-i poate fi frică de neatingerea ta? Numai eu te chem dintr-o altfel de spaimă. Lacrima revine, dorul zăpezii mă caută în odaie sperând și prin somn devine noul meu chip rătăcit în oglinzi. Închid ochii și te chem mai devreme, timp care nu m-ai mângâiat încă trupul. Hai să ne jucăm de-a moartea. Presară zâmbet peste zâmbetul meu, să nu știe soarele dacă am murit cu adevărat. Voi chema căderea frunzelor să acopere chipul meu rătăcit în oglindă. Voi trage cu var cercul nunții neîntâmplate. În jur, rămână în grija ta amintirile ieșite din lucruri, străjuite până vei culege ochii singurătății din scoici și vei aduce la întoarcerea jocului meu ca pe o hrană uitarea.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mulțumesc mult.
Living in these lands, it seems that God abides through their yards with firewood. They take their little strides. The peace of heaven they convey, everything they do. They pamper horses with some hay, and sheep their fodder too. Above all, in all they do, they surely have no fear. It's clear their soul to heaven's blue keeps rising through their tears. Sometimes when the flame is low, the humble home so small sees Christ descend, his heart aglow from icons on the wall. The goat is barting on the door, breaks a horn apart. The drawing of the chimney smoke makes curling works of art. The flapping slats along the fence can startle like a bell, while in their arms the kindling flares with a mysterious spell. The moaning snowstorms disappear, sparkling clouds entrancing. They hover gently through the air like radiant spirits dancing. And sometimes when the flame is low, a humble home so small sees Christ descend, his heart aglow. Icons on the wall. This mystery, a breath divine, the village can convey. 3 parts in heaven do recline, only one in clay. Isn't or angel, which are they? It isn't understood. Those who faithfully each day bring home the firewood, all the while with growing hope they fan their fire bright. For God went visiting their dreams to warm himself at night. Și uneori la focul mic, casa lor sormana, Iisus întrușat în bec, zboară din icoana. Și uneori la focul mic, din casa lor sormana, Iisus întrușat în bec, zboară din icoana.
Thank you very much, Daniel. That was beautiful. I'm going to pass on now to our friends in Bistrița. Can we switch for the next few minutes? And well, let me just acknowledge before I do that the authors of this volume. I mentioned Dorel Cosma, Dr. Dorel Cosma, and Menuț Maximilian, who've been part of the editing team. And then the translators, Zorin Diaconescu, Adriana Paul, who's just disappeared. She was here before, and myself. These are the authors. I pass on the mic for the next few minutes to the people in Bistrița.
Pater Nicolae Fer.
Cine-s eu? Cine-s eu? Un dor și un vis? O mărgică într-un șirac de strămoși murind de drag de pământ și paradis. Cine-s eu? O nemurire și un bulgăre de lut și murit și renăscut, pom al vieții și pădure, de păcate și dureri, de lumină și abisuri, fund de iad și paradisuri, de splendori și de căderi. Sunt poiană și sunt schit, sunt și miel și junghiere, vin și fagure de miere și străpuns și nemurit, și sunt chipul slavei tale, dar mi-am întinat veșmântul. Spală în sânge necuvântul și în smerenie mă prăvale. Desfurtună și senin, mă adună și mă leagă ca un snop, mă fă de sagă, de prescură și de vin. Scutură-mă în zăr de har, tainei iconom mă ține și învie pentru mine miel de jertfă pe altar. Cine-s eu? De pentru mine Dumnezeu se dă pe sine. Fă-mă ca să fiu ce nu-s, floare în raiul cel de sus.
Următor. Dar ne văd? Ne aud? Că nu știu.
Da, sigur.
It's okay, Daniel?
Do you hear us? Yeah, okay.
It's okay, yes?
Următorul.
Ok. Rodica Fercana.
Cântec
Nu.
pentru Eminescu. Prin dansul fulgilor de nea, te zăresc venind din lumi astrale, Emin, stea cu luciri de peruzea. Noi, umbre în pașii urmei tale. De suferința acestui neam, ai chipul drag mereu înlăcrimat. Printre flori de gheață de pe geam, oglinda lunii te strecoară însingurat. Coroană de laur pe fruntea zdalbă, înger blând din ceruri ades ivit, ești a noastră inimă, ești a inimilor noastre salbă, măria ta, Eminescu, cel nemurit.
Gheorghe Mizgan.
Mascat de umbre, o priveam cu nesaț, eu, vânătorul, ea căprioara, și în loc de pușcă aveam ochi cât să adune tot prezentul în containere de amintiri. Mascat de umbrele lampadarului, o priveam. În părul castaniu se oglindeau stele, pe chipul captiv, între zăbrele de lumină, un licăr. Pe umeda dâră se prelungeau picuri de tristețe, adunate în potir. O priveam prin ochii mei uscați de atâta neclipire, statuie stradală. Deodată, ca într-o fugară presimțire, și-a întors chipul cu un zâmbet pal. Fulgurantă privire, s-au spart vitrinele ochilor mei, priveam în jos la molozul adunat la picioare. Și atunci, eu, vânătorul, m-am trezit vânat. M-am înscris în fluxul pietonal al trotuarului, lăsând-o în urmă odată cu trecutul. Stelele cerneau clipele în nanoparticule de speranță. Mulțumesc.
Corina Neire.
Mulțumesc. Încerci să te întâlnești cu tine și te revezi copil printre coline când, bucuros că întâmpini primăvara, priveai cum la izvor se adapă căprioara. Pe malul apei te întreceai cu valul și vântul te alinta urcând cu tine dealul. Curios, priveai culori ce le aprindea în zori un răsărit de foc ce-ți dă și acum fiori. Cu talpa frământai mirat un fir de iarbă, pășai desculț, trecând pe ulițe în grabă, opincile băteau un ritm în colbul de pe drum. Hai, urcă în pod, te așteaptă un costum. Costum purtat de un om drag în sărbători. Juca mândru, semeț, un joc doar de feciori. Ai învățat să-l joci și învățând toți pașii, sudoarea săruta fin gulerul cămășii. Jucatul ai și tu, cu drag și cu mândrie. Păstrează-i amintirea, icoană să îți fie, că sunt frânturi și rânduri dintr-o viață, cu zile înșirate pe fir de albă ață.
Mirela Rus.
Thanks. O, înger al meu, ești viață și cântec. Ești dulce de scântec, când noaptea apare și sufletul doare. Ești nemurire, ești fericire, când lacrima arde, cortina când cade. Ești dor și îmbrățișare, ești răsărit de soare și ploaie de vară după arșița grea. Ești suflet ce învia vieții în pustie. O, înger al meu, cu mine mereu.
Veronica Știr.
Clepsidra pustie, in memoriam Ioan Justin Purza. Cu regret anunțăm că ultimul bob de nisip n-a mai fost găsit. O pasăre neagră croncănea pe creangă, mâini oarbe mângâiau vidul și ningea în aprilie și plângea vioara. Înghețau florile pe buzele îndrăgostiților, doar brazii mai stăteau de veche la marginea tăcerii.
Victor Știr.
Viața un șarpe. Bolnav, întins pe piatră cu memorie intermitentă, Ochiul incandescent în nisip visează șirul sirenelor, defilând în tăcerea ce înfășoară ca un văl, silfidele se înneacă în armonicele cărnii. Reamintiții aburi ai frăgezimii.
Marilena Toxin.
Neașteptate măsuri. Am stat cu tremurat, tăcut în noapte. Eu nu privesc decât în cuvinte. Tămăduit cu spaime și șoapte, am protestat doar în minte. N-aș suporta să mă vadă, în gând vreau să-i fac doar surprize. E ca un stejar semănat într-o ladă. De ce îmbrățișările sunt interzise? Persist în zile scoase din timp, nimic nu mai e ca înainte. Sunt trist, prin gânduri mă plimb și ziua de astăzi mă minte. M-am hotărât, mă izolez de primăvară. Nu mai suport minciuni nelegiuite, doresc să scap din cochilii afară, să las suferințe în priviri rătăcite. Nu mă împiedică convalescența cu drastice măsuri sortite morții, mă chinui încercând să caut esența, convins de o tămăduire a sorții.
Maria Blaga.
Puțin umor, vulpea cea șireată. Coană vulpe, te-ai legat de găinile din sat. Le-ai chemat să le dai sfat, iar apoi le-ai înhățat. Te prefaci că ai murit. Cât e drumul? Te-ai lățit. Cum apare o găină tocană, o faci la cină. Ehehei, vulpe șireată, cum te-aș agăța de o poartă să te vadă lumea toată, cum ți-e blana sfârtecată. Cum l-ai păcălit pe urs de îngheață coada pus. Iscusită ești la minte, de o găină nu te-ar vinde. Cum știi să te furișezi pe la păsări prin o grăz, ia că ți-a venit de hac cățelușul nostru drag. Și atâta te-a fugărit până ce te-a nebunit. Acu eu te-aș întreba, pun sare pe pielea ta? Mai vii seara la taifa să duci găina de nas? Vulpița tare drăcoasă, prada nici când nu și-o lasă. Și într-o noapte în cuibar, cot-codac se aude iar. Cot-codac și cot-codac, cocoșul-ți venit de hac. Ia că, vulpiță hidoasă, te răsfezi cum ești din casă și pentru cojocul tău este leac pe placul meu. Cocoșul țanțoș fecior le sări în ajutor și pradă găinilor căzu vulpea în mâna lor. Cât ai fost de iscusită, de cocoș ești doborâtă, merit să fii lecuită cât ești tu de afurisită. S-a dus vestea prin vecini că e vulpea la găini și un cocoș afurisit bătu vulpea de-a murit.
Și tot Maria Blaga, un moment muzical ca să închidem în aceeași atmosferă de aici, de la Bistrița.
Am considerat să cânt o romanță pentru că... Parcă ieri te-am văzut când mi-ai dat un sărut. Pare că ieri a fost ziua aceea când de mijloc m-ai prins și cu vorbea ai aprins în făptura mi curată femeia cu săruturi fierbinți. Ai știut să mă minți și să înveți dragostea mea de fată. Ai plecat, am zâmbit, dar ce mult te-am iubit. N-ai să știi niciodată. Vocea neîncălzită. Mulțumesc.
We are going to continue. I was going to acknowledge a few people, but I got distracted by the noise. Gheorghe Misgan, Corina Negra, and Father Nicolae Feia. Good to see you again. The last contingent of poets from from Sydney are now invited. I think the next poet
Just again.
to come up
Yes,
is Mark.
again.
And after that, I'm going to ask Catalin to read a poem of a poet who is not on the list, but who should have been here today.
Sunrise. The pomegranate seeds, the coconut husks, the gnawed out melon, all evidence that they were near, that they were here. Dawn stings the fleeing, dying night, while trees stretch away as far as sight. Distance, my erstwhile friend, wears me down and throws its tangents over me like a net. Wheeling birds, my white lieutenants, my loud, reliable scouts, screech ancient warnings. Time washes away like sodden debris down a stream, and something clogs. When the shot rang out, the ball of lead crashed through ferns, left me dead.
Thank you, Mark. We did miss you at a group. Sorry, I messed up the program. I'm going to invite now Daniel Reno and Adriana Paul for a surprise.
Yes, it is a surprise. I wasn't sure that Adriana would be here, and at virtually no notice at all, she has agreed to sing with me. We heard a tribute to Eminescu from one of our Bistrița folk, and this is one of his poems. It is a lament for lost love. The metaphors are autumnal, but they're going to be in Romanian. I'll sing the middle verse.
Să scutur frunzele de nor, să așează vremea peste fii. De ce nu-mi vii, de ce nu-mi vii? Vino iar în al meu veac, să te privesc cu mult nesați, să răzim dulce capul meu de sânul tău, de sânul tău.
Remember how in times gone by we walked together, you and I'd lift you up into my arms so many times, so many times. The world is full of lovely girls with fiery eyes that shine like pearls, but be they angels to my view, they can't be you, they can't be you.
Căci tu înseninezi mereu viața sufletului meu, mai mândră decât orice stea, iubita mea,
a poem by Anisoara Mustetiu, who couldn't be here. Her husband had a medical emergency, but we still would like to read her poem. Catalin will read one of her poems, and then Joe.
Thank you, Daniel. The poem is called The Rainbow of the Universe. So should I read this in English?
Yes.
Flying on the wings of my imagination. Far away from my ego. Searching the heights, I got lost on a luminous path in the universe. There was a hit by the silent echo on a profound desire to find, even for one moment, of pure love, unconditional, to soothe my soul still quivering under the weight of so many burdens. Seeking love, I attracted a cosmic explosion, a warm light, which I observed so thirstily, deep within my soul. Then I tenderly touched the colored lights of a rainbow illuminating the universe. In that divine silence, bathing in so much light, was the ego calling me to return. I ignored it. And I remained there for a few moments to feel the divine love and the quivering of my soul weeping in the silence of the universe. While my thought was floating tenderly over mountains and valleys with silvery snows again towards home, and a suave voice awake from my dream, I shook myself saddened, leaving on the wilted ground a burst of tears. Looking again at the depth of my soul, I glimpsed with astonishment a multitude of stars, pulsating and shimmering in a universe filled with divine love, wrapped from an enchanting dream. That was Anisoara Laura Mustetiu, and the poem was named The Rainbow of the Universe, page 169. Thank you very much. At the end, I've said it. Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here. I'm really, really excited to share this moment and poetry with everybody, and the music and the singing. It's all been fabulous. I'm going to read one on 183, Aftermath. It's an acrostic afterlife from William Carlos Williams' 22nd poem, also known as Red Wheelbarrow. It shifts slightly in the Romanian, but in English it's an acrostic poem. So much blood spilt, so much life hangs precarious, so much depends upon strange specificities, upon a million past decisions. A rising tide as dust binds to rims, edges brim bright, red. Framed, rounded like a wheel, dust finer than sand sticks to the widening shores. Bring a barrow for the dead. Eyes already glazed, unlike the wounded etched with pain whose pleas burn as acrid rain falls. Stretcher bearers wade through waste and fetid water. Beside broken bodies, strewn amidst the flies and stench of dread, fear fractures the white of the eye, one but last barely living. While chickens, feathered white, roam and peck.
Thank you, Daniel, and everybody putting so much work into this. It's wonderful to be here. So this poem, Slow Falling, was published by Red Room Poetry in The Disappearing, which is a collection of poems about people, places, buildings that have disappeared or are disappearing. So wherever you are in New South Wales, our state of New South Wales, you can go to the app and Google a poem about a person or a place near where you are that has disappeared or is disappearing. This poem is about an old house on the far south coast in a state of collapse, slow falling. The house, slow falling, makes no sound. Cows amble by without regard. Inch by year closer to the ground. You look away, pull out your working card. Cows all around eat on without regard. Through the window, corn cobs on the floor. You look away, play your working card. Once running feet and laughter kept the score. Through the window, corn cobs on the floor. Cattle find a shelter from the cold. Once running feet and laughter kept the score. When the river thins, the grasses cannot hold. Cattle shoulder in to shelter from the cold. The view across the hills is to the sea. As the river thinned, the grasses could not hold. A salt wind licked the timbers, edging free. The view across the hills is to the sea, inch by year closer to the ground. A salt breeze licks the timbers, tilting free. The house, slow falling, makes no sound.
Fragments of a spring storm. I rushed home through the yelling storm, up the winding trail that seemed to never end. I crossed a swollen creek, enraged by whipping winds, and wondered where the water dragons hid, perhaps below like dormant seeds. Crystal necklaces were flung in rivers all at once by ripping clouds. The solemn crow, immobile as if stuffed, clung to the chaos of entangled witchy boughs. I thought of magnolias, newly pink or white, trembling velvet chandeliers, their fast life cut short, their dream petals scattered, sodden, crushed. Thank you.
Thanks. This is a poem from my last book, The Bruise of Knowing. You hear me? Is that better? It's called Later. I didn't choose the other poem because that was a bit unbearable, but this was from the First World War. So you might learn why the second one happened too. Later, soldiers returning from rest on Lemnos to Gallipoli in winter, one mocking smiles, one, the darkness round his eyes like tears stained in, stares towards the camera in a sort of soft-lipped knowing, as if to a source of witness, indifferent to his no escape. Within the mass of others, this soldier turns, looks at the viewer. Others are side on, are contained in an obliqueness to things, as if deliberately not focusing. And officers standing at the edge of the barge, peak-capped heads pointing towards the white-flecked sea,
The illusion is they steer themselves, are in control.
Hi, my name is George Roca. I want to make you laugh a little bit. Do I look like a leopard? My son told me, you know, I look like a leopard. You know why? I left my glasses at home and I was desperate, you know, and I asked my wife, you know, have you got your glasses? And she gave me her glasses. So I apologize to be a leopard today. I will read you in Romanian. It's page 209. De unde începe lumea? Astăzi, lumea începe de la tine și se termină la mine. Democratic ar fi ca mâine lumea să înceapă de la mine și să se termină la tine. Pentru tine, lumea poate să înceapă din America, sau din insula Pitcairn, sau din Sikkim, Nauru, Botswana, sau chiar de pe Ciomolungma. Pentru mine, lumea începe din România și se termină în Australia. Punct. Pentru unii, lumea începe de la ei și se termină tot acolo. Ei și restul lumii. Pentru alții, fără coloană vertebrală, lumea începe și se termină cu 30 de arginți. Lumea poate să înceapă pe pământ și să se termine la capătul universului. În ultima vreme, pentru mulți dintre noi, lumea începe din clipa în care ne cuplăm pe internet. Lately, for many of us, the world begins in the moment when we connect to the internet. Thank you very much.
I'd like to add my thanks to Daniel and his colleagues for enabling this project and this recital, and to the poets in Bistrița and Sydney for joining our convocation. The poem I'll read is called Basho in the Suburbs, and it's on page 227. This poem came about when Julie and my wife and I were planning a holiday that never happened over the pandemic. We were looking at a walking tour in Japan that retraced the steps of Basho. Basho in the Suburbs. A bull-nosed veranda grazes over tessellated tiles and tuck pointing. Camellias, gardenias, and begonias throng the fence line. There is a music of the throat in the concrete. Cars, buses, trucks, all ants of a kind in endless procession. Stop, give way, detour, no through road. Instructions for confusion. We so immerse ourselves in motion, stillness has grown furtive. The crow is the smartest of birds. It sings of distance even when nearby. The kookaburra crowns the neighbour's stink pipe with a peaceful ruckus. It is pointless to quest for certainty when one thing may mean another. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you to our friends in Romania. 2 red plums. Red plum in the fruit bowl. It's the 1st of March. My teeth make a satisfying crunch as the golden flesh separates from the stone. Bitter skin takes me back to another autumn. She can only reach a fallen plum. The juice runs down her neck and wrists. She's wearing her good dress, the one with the daisies on the end of green ribbons. She throws the stone at the black cat, who jumps, skittish, shaking a back leg. She runs and hugs the cat too hard, stands up and sucks her dummy, watches the koi in the pond, who dash out of her reach as she climbs in.
She slides on the weed and fills a plastic bag with muddy water. She can hear through the house a knock on the front door. Adults are talking. She listens, still. She climbs cautiously out of the pond, rubs the mud on her dress, puts the dummy back in her pocket. I take another bite out of today's plum, but the plum in my memory is finished. How many hours did I spend amusing myself with a plastic bag, a cat, and a fish pond? Next autumn, when I eat a red plum, I won't remember today, but I will remember the fallen plum, the fish pond, and the unexplained voices. Thank you.
The piece is called Cynthia for the record. It's backgrounded by modern photographic techniques. Cynthia, tonight the digital camera is unloading our times, cascading them pixel by pixel, a visual soliloquy, a perfect series of stories that sing down through the wires of universal and serial bereavement, the demise of love. Our lot a cloud of images, time-stamped and very raw and almost final, but for the opportunity of the largest space, the place where we can edit memories, smoothing out or repairing, dodging the darker bits, cloning, cropping, and recoloring, all the better to bulk up the collection and delete the truly appalling. Erase the last unfocused arguments, the joint and several days of loneliness, all those stacked failed shots of happiness.
This song is from a poem by Leonid Dimov, Romanian poet, with the music by probably Romania's leading folk, rock, jazz musician, Nicolae Fantas. It's called Destiny with a Baobab. City danced a paperboard quadrille in cinemas and scared against their will. The streets were bearing whispers as their burden, but just between the breaks at 5 and 7, the square where famous Swabians would gab lay dwarfed beneath a towering baobab, with cellars and a forehead like a house, and pearly trains that ran along its boughs. Along the blue train stations, we'd be smiling, absinthe glasses limpid, so beguiling. We'd laugh and talk of life as it went past. The fish were watching us behind the glass. The fish were watching us behind the glass. And you can sing along. La la la, la 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 la, la la la, la la la, and again. La la la, la 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 la, la la la, la la. That evening when a tender cloud aglow was mirroring a barking rooster crow, the Swabian doctors lovingly would dab the sick ones lying in the baobab, the square where famous Swabians would gab lay dwarfed beneath a towering baobab, with cellars and a forehead like a house, and pearly trains that rushed along its boughs. Along the blue train stations, we'd be smiling, absinthe glasses limpid, so beguiling. We'd laugh and talk of life as it went past. The fish were watching us behind the glass. The fish were watching us behind the glass. La la la.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for bringing music to this afternoon's event. And thank you, Adriana. And also, I missed the name. Thank you for the traditional song from Romania, which we also heard. Now, we watched the people from Bistrița like fishbowl in a glass, and so they did to us as well. They watched us like fishbowl in a glass, fish behind a glass, sorry. And I guess in this world, which is increasingly fragmented and is identifying itself according to smaller and smaller and smaller definitions, poetry still provides this kind of universal medium to kind of unite us, get us together. And thank you very much from the people of Bistrița. Thank you, Zorin, Dr. Cosma, Father Nicolae Feyer, Mirela Rus, Elena Campan, and all the good poets from there from joining us so early in the morning. Really, really appreciated your effort, as well as your poems. And thank you very much, poems from Sydney, poets from Sydney, and poems from Sydney. Thank you as well. Be they natives of Sydney or coming from other shores, such as Georgia and others from Romania who are residing in Sydney. For me, it was a very emotional, memorable afternoon. I'm going to end it here. We went over time and I saw Rihanna left, so that's not a good sign. Hopefully there's not going to be some bomb exploding us. So thank you again for everyone making it this afternoon. Goodbye.